pause for a minute and talk a little bit about, just this week we're seeing the proposed repeal of the SGR, which has been a huge conversation for almost 20 years now. How do we get past what is basically a fee-for-service cost control and move into something that is really about, again, this goes back to the financial viability of the system, but it really goes back to how do we bundle these pieces together? How do we get one single way to think about our incentives? Here's what's really encouraging about this. As this is coming out of the House, it passed the House, I think, about a week ago. They have taken many of the structures that we've been using in the past, incentives, bonuses, penalties, at the federal and state levels, and they're putting them together now into a single program that's called MIPS, the Merit-Based Incentive Payments. And if you look at those incentive payments, they've now collapsed in meaningful use incentives, the cost and utilization incentives that come out of some of the, like the PQRS and GPRO reporting, and then there's some additional clinical practice improvement incentives. What's interesting about meaningful use is I think if we were all having a conversation even as recently as a month ago, most people that I was talking to in the industry felt like meaningful use 3 was good work, but nobody saw where the money was going to come from. We had already seen lots of signals coming out of the regulatory environment that there was not going to be continued funding for that. Now we're looking at potentially that being reinvigorated, and certainly we're getting lots of meaningful use incentives today. That is, if you look into the detail of it, it's 25%, but if more than 3/4 of your organization is already meaningful use attending, that number goes down to 15%, and that extra 10% actually goes to other things around cost and utilization and clinical practice improvements. So there really is starting to coalesce around a consolidated structure for managing a number of these programs. So it's hopeful. Of course, we're always going to see where this turns out as it goes through. There's a difference between what's written in legislation, what's passed in legislation, and how it actually gets operated. But there's a lot of encouragement here that we're starting to consolidate around how we get risk incentives in